Shall we start? Okay, thanks for coming. I think most people will still go for food or actually try to get to the airport or try their best fake Irish accent to impress other people at St. Patrick's Day. It's going to be very Irish tonight, top of the morning and all that. I'm talking about participating in the web of data, and I'm talking about several things here, and it always cracks me up when people write down URLs while you show them in 2 seconds, so you don't need to do that. Everything I'm going to show is already on my blog, it's already on SlideShare, and it's everything I bookmarked at delicious.com, code poet, MIX10. So if you look for MIX10 on Delicious, you probably find all the links that we're having here. So in the keynote yesterday, they talked about the OData stuff and the Project Dallas, and that was pretty impressive. That's why I said I'm going to wear their T-shirt, and although I'm not with them. And it's free T-shirt. Hey, you gotta do something about that. And what I'm going to show you now is actually more or less the same idea, but on steroids. So I've been web developing for 12, 13 years professionally, and I've seen the web evolve to something that is absolutely amazing, but right now I see it devolve as well. So this is what I'm going to talk about, a bit about today. So when I started web development, it was 1996, and I was a radio journalist. I was an audio producer and newscaster at a radio station, and I found the internet, and before that I had BBSs and all these kind of things, and I'm like, this is great. It's a medium, it's something I can reach people worldwide without spending much money or without committing a crime. So if you want to be on TV or you want to be on radio, you have to commit a crime or you have to spend a lot of money to be on radio and TV. On the internet back then, like free services, make great websites with like flying unicorns in the background and rotating ad signs. And it was great. People already were on the web, and we participated in it and we did something with that, and that was cool. And then I started working as a professional web developer. And it started getting a bit like weird because you had the first content management systems, small ones, and we had bespoke applications for every different client out there. I remember when browsers didn't have JavaScript properly, and I had to write rollover navigations in a Java applet that took like 20 minutes to render, and it was just not fun. And clients wanted to have Flash intros then, and we basically played with the web and thought like, this is not really working out, but well, that's the web. That's how it has to be. And the first .com boom was absolutely brilliant as well, because I mean, I lived in a 5-star hotel for 7 months for writing HTML. And nowadays, that's not even thinkable anymore because nobody writes HTML properly anymore. That's why people go to HTML5 when they don't understand HTML4. So then we actually got into the enterprise level market. I started working with content management systems like Tridian, Vignette, Documentum. And that was quite interesting because we built these massive systems to make the web thing easier for people. And they spent 6 figures on buying some software, and then actually they had to spend 4 figures on training for that software, which somehow was confusing to me, because like, if I just spent that much money, shouldn't it be a usability thing that I don't have to think about it anymore? Do I really have to pay you extra to explain the thing that I already overpriced? And this is what we did. This is what we sold these systems for people like local councils, like schools, like universities, like big corporations, and they all built these systems on enterprise content level content management systems. And most of the companies like eBay, Amazon, and us, we built our own ones. I remember when I started at Yahoo, we had a system that actually was one big text box. And you wrote a mix of PHP, Perl, and HTML in that one text box without any color coding. It's no wonder that our code was not maintainable. But the real problem, I thought, always was the rip-off of having to spend a lot of money on a content management system that allows me to do cool things with the web, and then having to pay extra for the training. It's a bit like the hotel here. Like they show you the great gym, and then you have to pay $30 a day to use it, which is just not on. I'm sorry. So that was the wrong one. Enterprise-level content management systems created things like that. And this is what we give people and think this is great. This is usability. This is how the web should be like. So what we do with these content management systems, we replicate things that we already hate on the desktop, and we put them on the web and make them slower. And then we make them more expensive, and then we hopefully have a good business model out of this. And I'm tired of this. I'm tired of like 500 tabs and graphs and things when it should be a web interface. The web is a simple network of computers. It's a simple input-output system, read-write system, and I should not have to have a certain browser. I should not have to have a certain ability. I should not have to have, I don't know, a fast connection to use your websites. And these kind of things on a smaller resolution on my new netbook I can't use. And this is what we bought 10 years ago and said, like, this is for the next 10 years, that's going to be good. Anybody telling you that a software right now is going to be good for the next 5 years, we won't have ever to do something with, that is a liar. That's just not going to be on, because it's evolving so fast. But we try to make it look like something it is not. We try to make it look like the desktop stuff because people are happy on the desktop with it. There's this almost Stockholm syndrome of, this like, oh, this looks like Outlook. This is as good as Outlook then. Well, it's a room booking system. It shouldn't look like Outlook. Or it's a travel system. It shouldn't look like Outlook or the other systems. I've been at Future of Web Apps in Dublin. And one of the guys before me was basically showing an interface like that as the presentation for his cloud computing platform. So it was about cloud computing, and he showed us for half an hour. And these are tabs, and they load with Ajax. And I'm like, really, this is what we still give people? I want the web to be better. I was excited when I found the web, and this excitement we lost a bit because of things like that. So then I started joining the corporate world, and I realized that I know nothing. You know, when I came into the Yahoo office, I had already 10 years of experience. I was head of web development at an agency in London. And you know the scene in Men in Black, where he goes into the room and he's like, yeah, I'm the great guy. You hired me because I'm great. And he's like, you know what? You know nothing. He sees like the spaceport with all the aliens. That's exactly what happens if you go into a corporate company like Amazon, eBay, Microsoft, or Yahoo, because we for 10 years had to cater for everybody out there with great, great systems and not out of the box like click and box, here's your interface. We had to do these things ourselves. So, and then Web 2.0 came around, and that was the coolest thing ever. Out of a sudden, we had this wonderful little scam where we said, like, you know, we don't have to pay for content. We just let our users write the content, and we put ads on that and make money with it, which was cool. And a lot of people did it wrong, because the main thing about Web 2.0, what was the main problem about UGC, is moderation. It's great that we allow people to write their own content, and it's great that we actually publish this content in a nice way. But I, for example, did Yahoo Answers, and the amount of moderation overhead we had just deleting things that shouldn't be on the web, or just like, who taught you to use a keyboard from the start, is pretty stunning. So you find all these like UGC things that flood systems, and again, don't do anything for the web. Like comments on YouTube, I'm sorry, you can turn them off. There's really no sense in what's coming out of those most of the time. And it's sad because people just are frivolous with these systems and play with them. When you go to markets like Asia, or you go to markets like Singapore, where people have a lot more restricted access to the internet. In Singapore, I have to put in my social security number to go on the internet. That makes sure that I don't put comments in there that might go back to me, which is terrible that the state does that, but at the same time, why do we allow people to flood the systems that we build? And we did this because in Web 2.0, it was all about the numbers. It was not about the quality. It was about how many users did you have in the first 5 months. What these users did, who cares? As long as you had the numbers. We're the biggest in travel Web 2.0. We're the biggest in like video online thing. And a lot of Web 2.0 companies are gone now because they did not go for quality. They went for quantity. So what comes now? Next thing that we said, like, okay, we had the web started, and we had the enterprise level web where we said content management systems will do everything, and we realized they don't deliver things that people want. Then Web 2.0, like, oh, let's cut the content from the users, and the content didn't come. And next buzzwords right now is the web as the platform, the mobile web, and geolocation. I'm very happy about geolocation. I do a lot of stuff with geolocation. I think it's important that we realize that people do not sit in front of their desktop at home anymore. People have nice phones, people have nice laptops, and they should get the information where they are right now, what's going on around them. And we have the technology for that, but a lot of people don't do that yet because of, I don't know, privacy reasons. That has been solved already. Yahoo Fire Eagle is about 3 years old, was the first location service that would allow me to tell the world, here is where I am at this moment in time. And we didn't allow people to keep a history of where they were. And this is why people didn't use it. Everybody wanted to keep their history. So people are happy to put it on Foursquare. I'm here, 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 here. Okay, you're not at home, I can rob your house. Awesome. So privacy and geolocation is going to be an interesting part. But I'm actually thinking we should stop a bit and think about what we've done. We already, for the last 10 years, built systems and put them on the web and ran away when it became annoying to actually maintain them. A lot of agencies I know just deliver something, and when the client gets annoying, then they pay their way out and basically leave the stuff there. So we got all these train wrecks on the information superhighway out there that basically are in the way of the interface itself. So every time we build something, people are happy with it or they paid for it and they don't want to change it anymore. That's why when people say like, oh, I don't support IE6 on my blog and that's going to get rid of IE6, that's a great new move, but it's also not true because the companies that force their people into IE6, those are the ones that bought one of those content management systems in the beginning 2000s that just built interfaces for IE6. And if they wanted to change right now, they have to change the whole infrastructure of the company, and they're not going to do this. And this is the sad fact that we have to deal with. And that's why I don't want to work for the IE team, because it's terrible. It's like they can do whatever they want. This is the thing we have to solve right now. We have to make it interesting for people to upgrade and get rid of their old browser or IE6. So all these things are there. People spent money on it. People were trained on it. If I spent 6 figures on a content management system, I spent another $20,000 to train my people up on that. I'm not going to change that because a new browser comes out, because this is money I spend. I don't want to understand the web. This is another thing we have to think about. Not everybody is as excited as we are. So people like to stick to a path. People like to stick to the systems that they have. I mean, this was in security at the airport. He's playing solitaire. And people like to use Excel. People like to use Outlook. Why should we force them on the web? That's my main point that I have right now. It's like we try to force feed people the web because it's the newest, coolest thing, and people don't want to understand it. People are not as excited about it. So let them use whatever they want and get the data out. So it's time to shift down a gear. If I want to overtake another car, I go down one gear, I press the accelerator, and I'm a lot faster. But I have to take that step back. I have to think about like not just accelerating, not just inventing, not just doing things like, what have we done and where are we going? This is what we have to think right now. And this is what I've been doing for the last few years, and I've been very successful with it, was finding the common denominator. The common denominator of every interface on the web is data. It's information. We have information out there, and we just put different interfaces on it. And the problem is, if we build an interface with a content management system that's a massive HTML behemoth, we're not going to be able to put that on a mobile phone. We're not going to be able to put that on something like the iPad or a console. And this is the web. Whatever you build, you have to build for everybody. And otherwise, you will die out. You will become one of those like companies that used to make interactive CD-ROMs and sold those. This is what we're going with. So data, information is what we really, really should concentrate on. And finding clean, good information on the web is terribly hard because people just munch them up and put them into HTML. Finding a semantic HTML page is a pain. So tapping into the world of data is what I've been doing in the last few years. Whatever I start with, and I've just came back from Atlanta for a university hack program where we give the students 24 hours to build something cool. And I say, get your data together. Get your information together of your system, then build an API on top of that, and then build your interface. Because when you have the information in place, the rest comes for free. If you start with your design and you get bogged down in rounded corners and tabs and building fancy things, you're not going to finish it in time, ever. If you start with the information and remix the information every year for a new platform, you don't have to think about it anymore. Nothing inside Yahoo does not have an API. Everything runs on top of APIs, because that's the only way we can scale. On Yahoo Answers, we had 3,000 hits a second on some of the pages. This is not going to be happy if you write that to the database. If you go through an API, no problem whatsoever. So APIs are the best thing right now and will still be the best thing, because what we do is we separate the concerns. We have a data source, we have an API, and the API talks to the end users, talks to developers, talks to other applications, and that's pluggable. You can put as much in as you want to. And if you have the application programming interface and you change your data source, that's possible as well. If you put everything together and you just do your SQL calls directly in your PHP or ASP or C#, that's going to be hard if you go to another database later on. On Yahoo Answers, for example, we moved from PHP to Java in the back end, and we could do it and still maintain the front end the same way because everything went through an API. Problem with APIs is that developers develop APIs. So every developer thinks right now that's the best way of building an API. So for 10 years inside the company, we had different APIs with different endpoints, different data coming in, different data coming out, different ways of authenticating. So when we tried to use an API in one system, it was like a 3-month discussion with different parts of the company to find out where the data comes from. And this is why we said, okay, let's stop this and do something with it. So an API, for me, is on-demand delivery of the needed data in the right format, and access of the data source only when it's needed, otherwise you cache it. And this is what I do with my blog as well. I generate static pages, and this is it. Like my database can go down, the thing will still be there. And this is when we built YQL. YQL is a SQL-style language. It's not full SQL, but it actually turns the web into your database. It turns every API out there into a database table that you can select things from, that you can mix things from, and you can mash them up together. And this is what, in the last year that I started working with that, it made so many things that I did in the past obsolete, and this is what I love. In my job, I want to be redundant every half year and have to rethink my job. Otherwise, we will not drive the web further. It's be hungry to get something new. And this was actually, when I've tried it out the first time, I'm like, you're kidding, this is not working. But it is working, and we've had it for half a year now. So the syntax of the language itself is select what from where the conditions are going like that. So simple SQL, you can nest them in each other, and you get the information out. So examples. Select star from Flickr photo search where text equals donkey and license equals 4. Gives me Flickr photos as XML back that I can use immediately in the browser, on the command line, in JavaScript as JSON, in every format that I want to have. Before that, I had to go to developer.flickr.com, sign up for an API key, wait for the email to come back, go to the endpoint, do the OAuth authentication to get 10 pictures. I want just 10 pictures. Don't let me jump through hoops to sign up for 10,000 different things if I can do it like this. And this is what we did. We put all of our APIs, and we've got, I think, 37 official ones and the internal ones, into the system, so you don't have to go read through all the documentations anymore. You can do this and get the data back. And it's not only us. We allow people with an XML schema that you put on GitHub that points to your endpoint and tells you what the information is that comes in, what information comes out, and where the data endpoint is, you can get this information. So this one goes, for example, to Craigslist, gives you location San Francisco Bay, type whatever that is, and query flower pot. So if you want to have a flower pot on Craigslist, you can do this with this line of code. You can put it in a browser, and it will be there. You can say, for example, I want to have healthcare news from Google News. So all the systems that are out there, all the APIs on programmerweb.com, we went through them. When we built something with it, we built a table, and we made it this way. So Google News, healthcare. What if I want to do more than one resource? I can say query multi, and I have New York Times article search, Microsoft Bing News, and Google News, where all of them are healthcare. I get them back as one XML feed. Try to do that on your own, signing up for a key with the New York Times, trying to find the Microsoft Bing documentation, understanding it, trying to find the Google News documentation, understanding it. Why should I have to worry about this? This is the data on the web already, and I should get it back in a format that I can play with. So what if there is no API? What if there is a provider that basically just has an HTML page? And that is what a lot of people do. That's what microformats try to do and failed at. So this one, for example, takes select content from HTML, where the URL is foxnews.com and the XPath is h2a. So this one will get me the text content of every link on the foxnews.com homepage. Out of a sudden, I have this content and I can do something with it. What could I do with it, for example? I run it through Google Translate and turn it into French. Out of a sudden, I can make a little French widget with CNN, with FoxNews.com homepage data. Cause some of that will be a problem in terms of, are you allowed to scrape that? Are you allowed to use that? But what YQL does is, if in your robots.txt or in your expires headers you say, please don't come here, we don't go there. Other scraping systems will do that for you, but we appreciate if people don't want us there. But it's just great that I can now use something on the web. I can use an HTML interface, and I can turn it into a data set and translate it into another language without needing to know any of these APIs. What if I want to do something that I write something into something? WordPress updates. Do I write my own WordPress widget? Do I go to documentation, understand it? I can say insert into WordPress post, title, description, blog URL, and the values. So this is how I could, from YQL, actually make an update to my blog post, to my blog without going to my blog. The API itself is this. query yahooapis.com/v1 public YQL question mark. Q is the query, like the ones I showed you. Format is XML or JSON. Callback is the callback function. This is all you need. You don't need to go to the console. You don't need to sign up for anything. You can use this now for any of the data that is on the web and remix and mash it up any way you want to. And this is cool. This is just, for me, was like, this is great because I don't have to write documentation. I don't have to understand what people are coming from because the tables that are inside there come with a description as well where people explain to me what they expect of my stuff. So, developer.com YQL, developer.yahoo.com YQL has the documentation in it. You don't waste any time reading API docs because API docs are most of the time badly written or not maintained when the API gets maintained. You don't have to do that. All you need to do is know the table name, know how to select it and filter it out. You can create complex queries with the console, but you can do it on the command line as well. You never need the console, but it explains to you how to do it. And you can filter data before you use it. And that is important. A lot of APIs will give you full access. Like one of the demos was there like, oh, now I get all the Netflix data as one XML feed, which is great. But if I'm on a mobile device, for example, I don't want to download 5 meg of XML data to show you 2-3 titles. So in YQL, I can say I can filter, I can query before the call, after the call, and cut it down to the only information that you need. And I can show that in a second as well. Fast pipes. The YQL is running on the same server farm as Yahoo Pipes. And that one has a data center in the East Coast and one in the West Coast, and we're working on one in Europe as well. And I've done a lot of queries with my own server and found like 5 different RSS feeds from different locations and realized that costs me 5 seconds in my application, which is not fun if you do that. Now, if you go through the YQL system, it went down to like 0.8 seconds. And this is much, much better. And why should my computer get hot and burn when the data center of Yahoo can do that for me? So internally, when we always say like, oh, I want to have a new API, what do we do? Why should we use YQL? They say like, because my pipe is bigger than yours, which is a bit of a weird thing, but what can you do? And the caching and the conversion stuff is like, I don't want to know that on my server. Why can't I just use it? And in the YQL server farm, you can. So it caches it for me, it converts it for me. So what can you build with this stuff? Governments right now release data sets, and this gets me terribly excited. I was with the UK government about things like healthcare, things like schools, things like the state of my street. And I get this information from the government right now because Google, Yahoo, and other people, and the Electronic Frontiers and other people that say, you collect data with our tax money, and you never see this data again. What's going on there? So the UK government, the US government, the Australian, the New Zealand government, all of them have data sets on the web right now about information about the state. And you can build mashups with that actually have a benefit for citizens of this country. And not just a mashup like, look, I got photos on a map. This is awesome. You really can do something with like, where are the shittiest schools in England? Where shouldn't I go with my children? I get this data from the government, and I can make a nice visualization and find out about it. So this is an example that I built for one of these data sets. This is winterolympicsmedals.com. And I built this in 3 hours in one afternoon because I wanted to do something about Winter Medal Olympics. Because living in England, people are very confused about Winter Olympics because they don't understand really what it is because there's no winter sports in England anywhere. So they were like, oh, we only have 1 gold medal, why should we bother? They have 12 gold medals, or medals in all, and this is what I built this for. So I said, like, you can filter now by the Winter Olympics games, by country, by year, and by sport. All of this data would cost you normally something. You would go to ESPN.com, you find this information, or the NOC, and you would pay for that. What other cool companies do right now is when they research something, they throw the data out. And this is what this is based on. So the Guardian newspaper in England released a Winter Olympics article, which country won the most medals. They did their research for a month, went into all the data, did all the counting for me, and released it as an Excel sheet. And I'm like, Excel sheet is cool, because what can you do with that? I can upload the Excel sheet to Google Docs, I can save it a copy for mine, and I can say export it as CSV, or publish as a web page. Out of a sudden, I have an interface where people use Excel to maintain it, where they're happy to use Excel, and I didn't have to build them a web interface to put that information in. And I used data that I got for free from The Guardian, data storage by Google, and then I used YQL by Yahoo to build WinterOlympicsMedals.com, put my ads on it, and made some money, and explained to people what's going on with the Winter Olympics medals. So we have the infrastructure. Everything is out there. We just have to use it the right way. So I saved it out as a CSV file, and CSV is great. Comma-separated values, anybody who knows how to split a string can actually use that. And it's not a rich data set, but it's actually doing the job for a lot of these little data sets that we're dealing with right now. And then I say select star from CSV, where URL is the Google spreadsheet URL, and columns is year, city, sport, discipline, country, event, gender, type. So I go through the first line of the CSV, I get my column names that way, and as you can see, out of a sudden I can say, and year is 1924. So I can turn a CSV file from an Excel sheet in this line of code into a searchable and queryable database. And I can take the information from that and run it through Google Translate or things like that as well immediately. So this is what we can do right now if we use the web the way it was meant to be. Systems in place doing one job at a time that you can put together in a modular fashion to get information out to end users, catered to demands of the end users and not catered to demands of us. Like, oh yeah, we should have a menu because we want to show the hierarchy of our company, rather than having a good search box to find the massive data of your company. I worked with local government. They have to have 915 different services on local council websites in England, and we had to fit that somehow into a menu. That is just stupid. Nobody's going to use that menu ever. But it was a local government directive built in the 1999 that we had to follow. This is when people thought this is what the web should be like. This stuff will actually this will work in the next 10 years. YQL, we are open sourcing it as well, so you can put it on your own machine if you want to, but we have the data center for you to use. Of course, when you're a geek like me, you do this and you want to make it even easier. So what I've done is I've written a little PHP script that this is the code right now to turn any CSV file that is on the web or on Google Docs into a search form with a table that gives you the information back. So I include the CSV file, csv2service.php, say the csv2service is the WinterOlympicsMedals.com medals.csv or the URL from the Google Docs because I didn't fit it in there. Echo out the form, echo out the table, and you're done. This is how you could take any of the information that you collect in your company and people happily type into Excel, and people that are afraid of going on the internet, you can use this, once you put the CSV somewhere, to put it on your website. Why should you do the duplication of putting the data somewhere else and explaining people how to use an entry form and so on and so forth? Let people use what they're used to rather than forcing it onto them. So some more examples. Need some water. A friend of mine is in university right now. She does a little research. And she was annoyed that sometimes Google is better, sometimes Yahoo is better, and sometimes Bing is better for different results. She does public policy, so that's really a niche market. So Google is not that amazing in it. Yahoo is better. Bing has some really good stuff. And she spent a lot of time jumping from search engine to search engine, having 50 tabs open. Don't know what to do with that. So I built Goohubi, which probably is violating some terms and conditions in terms of the name, but we'll see about that. So far I hadn't got an email. And it searches Google, Yahoo, and Bing in one interface. So I search for donkey, I get them next to each other, I click them, I see the page on the bottom there, and she can scroll around in different results and do her research that way. Cut down like 2 hours of her research time every day, really happy. I've got a video on Vimeo.com how I've written the interface or the API of Goohubi using YQL in 22 minutes, live. And you can do that as well, because the YQL language is so easy that basically you can just use the different interfaces, put them together, make a bit of HTML with a YUI grids builder in this case, or XJS or whatever you want to use, and the information is there for you. You can have 3 search engines without signing up for any of them. UK house prices was something that I built for the UK government data release, which allows you to compare house prices in the whole of England next to each other. And I have Lestoria down there where you can rent flats in this area as well. The bar charts in there, I wanted to build this for the web, and I wanted to build it as a Yahoo application as well. We've got an application platform, how you can embed little applications into the Yahoo homepage. And if you got something on the Yahoo homepage, you got 300 million users going there. So I wanted to make sure this thing is really, really fast and really, really lightweight. So I was looking at Flash, didn't work out. Looking at Silverlight, didn't work out. Looking at generating images like Google Docs, like the Google Image Visualization API does, didn't work out. This is an unordered list in HTML, and the rest is done in CSS. And I turned this into a web interface as well. So you can point like a list of different numbers at this. You will get the HTML back that you can embed back into your pages. And that's the kind of thinking about development that I want people to do. Whatever you put into your website, don't make it just an interface element, also make it a data element. If you want to use these bar charts right now, you don't have to write them yourself anymore. If you find a bug, you can fix them for me because I put them on GitHub. It's all about little things that do one thing at a time rather than big systems that do everything half-assed and not really working out for you. So think about that when you build something new. This was done also in 4 hours because none of this had to be done by myself. These sliders and the autocomplete control, the maps are OpenStreetMaps, so they're free maps to show as well. They're Creative Commons. I could actually paint on them and it wouldn't be a problem. And yeah, all of this was out-of-the-box components that I just put together, built an interface. They called me 24 hours before the release of data.gov.uk and said, like, Chris, build something. Okay, what do you do? Like, I built this from these components, threw the components out. Now the next guy can build this as well. Tomorrow I'm going to Brazil for an open hack day, 24 hours. Students will come in, and we want to build something in 24 hours. What do? Here are your little points. Here are your Lego bricks to put together to build cool interfaces that do one job, rather than one interface that does every job. GeoMaker was an interface. We have a system called Placemaker, which allows you to send a URL, a text, or an RSS feed to the Placemaker API, and it finds all the geographical locations in this text. And it also does the disambiguation for you. So when you look for Paris, you don't get Paris, Texas, but you get Paris, France as the first result. You can also say, like, give me that in 30 miles radius around that area. You can also say, make sure that if you have London in your text, for example, that it is London the city and not Jack London or not Paris Hilton. So all of these things were in this API. It's a great API, but the documentation can be a bit daunting because there is no YQL interface, or there wasn't any. Now we have one. It was just, yeah, you have to put a post request to that, and you have to sign up for a key, and people didn't know what it was. So I built this GeoMaker thing where basically you have an input field where you can say type the text in, point to a URL, or point to an RSS feed. In the second thing, you had a data table where you can filter out what you don't want to have. And the third one, you get a map for copy and pasting. And you get your microformatted locations for copying and pasting. And I got KML output for Google Earth as well. Again, put together from data that I found through Placemaker and using systems that were out of the box like YUI grids and YUI tabs. I didn't have to do anything of that, and we don't have to anymore. Please, as developers, look around the web what other people have done and share what you've done with other people. Then we can drive the web forward. Otherwise, we reinvent the wheel and happily work with each other against each other than actually with the web. So in summary, we have the network, we have the technology. We have Google Docs, we have Google Apps Bot, we have Yahoo YQL, we have EC2, we have Amazon S3. All these things are out there, and all these things do one job and one job only at a time. Why should I do the stuff myself? The project code Dallas, I love this because what YQL does not do for you, we don't have a monetization platform for you. We don't have a terms and conditions platform for you because it's not supposed to be another data store. It's not supposed to be another app store. It's supposed to be just a filtering mechanism for the web and an interface to actually get data in and out. Whereas, and I love that Microsoft allows you now to do that with OData and basically get money for it as well. That's great because not everybody wants to throw their data out for free. Whatever I do, I throw out for free. I've written 5 books. The books that I wrote online are Creative Commons. You can use them yourself. People translated them into Chinese for me and into Portuguese for me. I didn't have to pay for that because I gave them out for free. And it's great stuff that we can do this nowadays. So we have people who work effectively with the tools they use. My ex-girlfriend was a wizard with Excel. I don't know how to use Excel. I've never had it open. I never did anything useful with it. I just had like timesheets in there and was annoyed that I had to fill it out. And I open up Firebug and start writing the things that she writes in Excel. And she hates the web. And she's like, I do the things in Excel that you do for the web. That's great. And I'm like, good, can I get that data? Yeah, here's the Excel sheet. And we do something together. This is what we should be doing rather than forcing people to use the web and also come back to one platform. This is another thing. I mean, I use a Mac here. I use Ubuntu at home. I use a Windows machine when I need to test things. Your system should work everywhere, not just force people into one interface. So we have a new generation coming up who naturally use the internet and are happy with web interfaces. I've been at there's the Young Rewired State event, which is 14 to 18-year-old hackers. They were invited by the government to basically use some of the government data and do something cool with that is actually that actually makes sense for them. And those guys, 14 to 18 years old, didn't know email. They use Facebook for talking with each other. They don't even bother with email anymore. They had no concept of what the difference between offline and online is, because the computer is always online. For us, we remember when we put the modem on, like, and we waited for like 20 minutes until something came back, and then we realized, like, oh my God, it is expensive. And in the mobile market, we sadly enough are still that way. I mean, I got my Nexus phone out here, and the first message was, yeah, well, welcome to the US, 10 megabyte is going to be £15. And I'm like, no, that's not going to happen. I'm not going to use this here. And this is sad, because systems, also mobile systems, give me far too much data. Give me only the data that I need. So if we use our efforts 50-50 on new and building APIs and converters to get the data from the web, from the old web, the web will rock. I mean, we don't have to spend those times and months to explain to people how to use a content management system when we just allow them to use Word, we allow them to use Excel, or whatever they want to do, CorelDRAW if it comes down to it. And all these systems are there and people use them, and they're happy using them. They don't want to learn something new. The hardest thing to do on this planet is unlearn something. People were happy to go through a terrible, terrible training and then actually do the same things. I find this in user testing. You can do a really terrible interface, and it takes like 5 steps where 1 step should be enough. And people are happy to do that because they know these 5 steps will get the job done in 3 minutes. Whereas rethinking, re-educating themselves to learn this 1 step in a new interface would be 2 weeks of learning. It's like, it doesn't feel right. I'd rather do the 5-step thing over and over again. I'm not like that, but there are a lot of people out there like that. I used to teach people computers, and it's like, move your mouse over the screen. And I had half the people, that was like 95, 96. I had half the people taking the mouse and putting it on the screen. And these people, sadly enough, are still out there. And also, when we build interfaces, don't go for the like coolest thing ever, drag and drop, and oh, really clever. If you look at the money that we make on the web, eBay, Amazon, those people, most of the people that spend the most money on the web are over 50 years old. I am never at home. I can't buy things on eBay because I have to wait for the postman to deliver it. People who cannot walk properly or actually don't have a car or don't drive anymore, they can order online and get it delivered at home. That's not a problem whatsoever. So think about that one when you want to think about the new coolest web app that you're doing right now. So homework, look at the GitHub repository for YQL tables. If you have a data set on the web, if you have an API, if you have something cool to give out to people, please write one of those tables. It's an XML schema. I can show it to you in a second because we've got a bit of time. And then you are part of this interface. You're part of this new infrastructure of data-driven web development that has modular interfaces to everybody out there. I don't want to use C# anymore. I use PHP. You guys like C#, do C#. I don't care. If it's a REST API under it, this is what we do here. There's a 45-minute video of me explaining how I built the UK house prices from scratch in English and German, in case you're really sorry and you want to have a different language. That's on the Yahoo User Interface Library blog. And that's all I wanted to talk about. Like, there's data out there, there's a system like YQL out there that allows you to build things, so don't get bogged down on building interfaces that people don't want. Let them use what they're happy with and give information out, and let experts build cool interfaces on top of your data rather than trying to do the whole service in one go. Any questions? Thank you very much.